Moving to Japan is all neon lit, rainbows and butterflies, until you get hit with real life. Visa renewals, taxes, not speaking Japanese, ADHD, making money, just surviving in Japan. Sup people of the interwebs, my name is STEFFIE. I've been working freelancing in Japan since 2016, and I started my freelancing journey with a lot of problems. So in this video, I spilled the tea on the 8 hard truths that I wish I knew before moving here. Before I jump in, I want to acknowledge this long ass break that I've been taking on YouTube. I think it's been 2 years since I posted my last video. And if you've been following me on my other channels like Twitch and Instagram, you may have noticed that I've also taken a break to come back to YouTube. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on what type of creator I am or want to be. Am I even a creator if I don't make things? I've realized lately through a lot of journaling and a lot of self-reflecting that one of the values that I can bring for those of you who are interested or already living in Japan. I know my pain is not especially unique. There could be many of you that are in similar situations as me and have the same struggles as me. So if you work in tech, you're a freelancer, or you want to freelance, you are living in Japan or interested in living in Japan, you might find some of these tips helpful. So hit that subscribe and thumbs up to let me know that you and this stuff is even valuable for you. All right, without further ado, number 1, the novelty of Japan wears off. Coming to Japan for the first time, especially if you've somehow romanticized coming here, whether it be from interests in Japanese media, anime, manga, literature, movies. If you've ever dreamed of coming to Japan, you kind of get that magic feeling when you first get here. So when I first got here, everything excited me. Like walking into a 𝘾𝙃𝙼𝙍𝙍, walking through a cemetery, stumbling into a random girls bar. But one day, as you were living here, meeting people, just walking around, going about your daily life, you're just gonna get used to it. And that's just human nature. You're gonna forget how excited you were. You might have to continually practice gratitude and continually remind yourself why you like living here and why you moved here in the first place. Particularly for someone like me, Japan represented my childhood dream because I was a wee. So it's the stuff that I really loved and enjoyed when I was an adolescent. And when I was having a hard time, my 20s, I was miserable in San Francisco, and I was so fixated on how miserable I was there. And I pretty much decided overnight that I would be leaving San Francisco and moving to Japan. I was pretty much running away from my life there and my responsibilities. I just wanted to start over because it was that bad. I didn't expect to be here for 8 years, but that thing that I was running away from, I had to eventually face it when I came here. If you are coming to Japan to escape your reality at home, and you move to Japan to make that your reality, you are eventually going to have to face whatever it was that was bothering you back then. And it might come out and manifest in different ways. Number 2 is you will not be able to speak Japanese fluently just by attending and doing well in Japanese language school. I felt that if I got 90s and above on my Japanese class, that just means I'm doing an acceptable job in my Japanese learning ability, but that's not necessarily the case. It really depends. I went to 𝘾𝙃𝙼𝙋𝙼 in Nippori, and while I think it was great for learning reading and writing, and it really gave me a foundation for my Japanese, but because outside of the classroom, I was not outputting and I was hanging out with many English speakers and I was staying in my little comfortable English speaking for the most part. After 1 year of language school, I wasn't feeling confident at all in my speaking ability. I realized that even though I was passing my classes, that I wasn't actually being able to communicate in Japanese in the way that I expected I was going to. It was not until I supplemented my learning with a language partner, someone that I was outputting Japanese to constantly. I only did it twice a week. I saw my Japanese skill improve drastically within 2 or 3 months. I'm not trying to discourage going to language school, which I think is a great investment. I would like to encourage that if you go to language school, that you just make sure you supplement it and get that output you need. If that course in particular is not giving you that, you need to find something else like 𝘾𝙃𝘼𝙋𝙼 or Hello Talk, or just find someone at a random izakaya and befriend them and just keep using Japanese and make all the mistakes you can until people understand what the hell you're trying to say. Number 3, I wish I knew that learning Japanese will give you a richer cultural experience, but it won't necessarily give you a higher salary. Let me explain this. At one point, I felt that the thing that I needed to get a better job in Japan was I needed to speak Japanese. I'm running less into the really fixed mindset of if you move to Japan without learning Japanese, without knowing Japanese, your only option is working in tech recruiting or English teaching. There are a lot of job boards to prove it. If you pass the BTN2 and you can actually speak Japanese in a business setting, you're gonna open yourself up to a lot more job opportunities that are available that will take you seriously. However, it doesn't necessarily equal higher salary because Japanese companies are notorious for low salaries in the developed world. After living here for so long and meeting people who don't speak that much Japanese, but are actually living thriving lives here and found other ways of making money, I want to emphasize that this other skill that you have is going to be a greater factor in making more money. Whether that is knowing how to code, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Python, being a very good software developer, that hard skill versus knowing a bunch of Japanese, that coding skill is going to get you more money than knowing Japanese. If you can speak Japanese and you have that coding skill, then you're set. But the most important thing for that job is the hard skill, right? It doesn't have to be software development. It could be photography, skills in sales and recruiting, because there's a quite decent amount of English speakers here also looking for jobs. Video editing, production, working with people, being good in tourism, teaching, if that's something that you want to do. It's more of that other skill that's going to get you more job opportunities. Building your own path. There's so much potential when you come to a new city. You can find opportunities in your community, in the international community or in the Japanese community, and create your own business or start freelancing and applying your skills in a way here. Another option is working remotely for a company that is willing to hire you as a remote worker. So again, that is to say, if you're a polyglot and you can pick up languages like that, and you have other hard skills that are marketable and valuable to your communities, you are a prize anywhere in the world, right? Not just Japan, but probably in your home country as well. Number 4, you do not have to quit your job to move to Japan. So when I moved here, I was already freelancing social media marketing and consulting, and I was working for a health tech startup. And I was still working for them while I moved here in Japan. I didn't really know the system that well, so I was separating my American taxes and my Japanese taxes. When I had quit my language school and realized, okay, I can't operate in the student visa anymore, I need to start making money in Japan and I need to have a Japanese working visa, I didn't have the knowledge at the time to understand that I could have kept that client and that could have contributed to my income in Japan, and that would have helped me get a better freelancing situation and visa here. I did not know any of that. Knowing what I know now about freelancing in Japan and operating under an employer on record, which is completely legal process system that a lot of different companies use, like Apple. When Apple hires employees here, if you see on their immigration form, it doesn't say they're employed by Apple, they're employed by some recruiting company B, for example, and that is their employer on record, but they're getting a payroll from Apple. Similar to that, you can be freelancing in Japan with your situation back at home, as long as you could work remote for them if you have this EOR. If you're interested in this, let me know, because this thing in itself deserves an entire video. If I knew that back then, I wouldn't have limited myself to the jobs that I found available in Japan. Number 5, get yourself a good immigration lawyer or 2 and a good accountant or 2. Talk to multiple people. When I first moved here, I was very hard-headed and I always wanted to do everything myself. You want to make sure you're getting the right information from different gyosei shoshi, different immigration lawyers, different accountants, and take advice, including mine, with a grain of salt. One of the reasons why I had been getting single-year visas for the first 6 years of my visa renewals. I was actually speaking to an immigration lawyer at the time, and a lot of the feedback that person was giving, it's random. When you apply for a visa is random. It's not random. The amount of years that you get from immigration on your visa, that number is not random. And no matter who tells you that it's random, even if they're an immigration lawyer, they are probably wrong. That piece of advice prevented me from realizing that I really wasn't paying enough taxes in the beginning. And the moment I got a decent immigration lawyer who kind of singled out, you're probably getting single-year visas because Japan doesn't think that your work situation is very stable. They got to check up on you every year. That's also true for the business manager visa, which is 1 year. That year that I decided, okay, I'm not going to expense that much and I'm going to pay a decent amount of taxes for my freelance income. That was the year that I got 3-year visa. And I'm kicking myself in the for believing that number was random. Get yourself some help. Make sure you prepare in advance. I wouldn't have found that immigration lawyer if I wasn't following a friend of mine who was a photographer who talked about how she finally got a 3-year visa after having a 1-year visa. She had the result that I wanted, and she introduced me to her immigration lawyer, and he was able to find the problem. Not all immigration lawyers are the same. Not all of them have the same amount of information or goals or knowledge to help you. You should look at their clients and see what kind of result they have. And if it's the same result that you want, you should talk to them. Number 6 is I've moved 6 times in Japan, and I've talked to enough real estate agents to know you do not need to pay key money to get a decent apartment. If your real estate agent says otherwise, there's something going on there. If they're not willing to negotiate, that it could mean that they're really not good at negotiating. Maybe they just started their job. They might be getting a cut of that key money. And that is actually very common in this budosan real estate situations. And that's part of the reason why it's there. In my experience, if they're doing their job correctly, they're helping you find places and they're negotiating for you, you can get about 50 to 100% of the real estate fee, right? That's what they're there for. That's their salary. He doesn't need that little extra kickback, especially if, you're finding the places for him on Sumo. I would have saved myself thousands of dollars on key money that just bye-bye gift money. So number 7 is a personal one. Relationships that worked at home might not work in Japan. They're definitely a huge adjustment to moving here. And when I moved here, I did it with the support of a very long-term partner of 6 years. Didn't realize how much the new friction of just adjusting to a new environment would have on a relationship. It could be your parents or friends, but you being in Japan and adjusting is going to create new friction. And the reality is those relationships are going to be impacted, whether it's in a positive or a negative way. You're going to have to adjust. Just be aware. And the last one, and maybe the most important one that I wish I could tell myself, is that you are the obstacle to your own success in Japan. It's so easy to blame other people. It's so easy to blame the system. There are so many opportunities in Tokyo now, even more than ever, because of how international it's becoming. I pretty much started from zero. From San Francisco. I did not know anyone in Japan except for the person I moved here with and a friend of a friend that I had met before moving here. I somehow managed to start modeling, started a nonprofit with 3 other people, learned how to code, got a full-time job for 1 year, went back to freelancing, also got diagnosed with ADHD and depression, found my way to get affordable therapy and climb out of that depression. And I'm currently freelancing with international clients, and I'm still living in Japan. None of these things would have happened if I had told myself I couldn't do it, or if I accepted the feedback that I was receiving saying that that's the way it is here. You can't do this here, or this is the only way to do things. If you want to stay here and you want to make it work, there's ways to make it work in one form or another. And if you need some living proof that you can freelance in Japan, I was feeling really shitty at the start of this video, but I'm actually really proud of myself for making it this far. Filming this kind of made me realize how much I've accomplished. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving a thumbs up and a subscribe, a comment. If you have any questions about the content that I said, I'm also writing a blog about this, so I'm going to link that blog in the description below. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.